Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the New York City PowerShell meetup. My name's Doug Fink, and I'll be your host. And tonight we're looking forward to Automate the Admin, presented by Matthew Dowst. Looks like it's going to be a really great topic. Before we do get started with that, coming up for the next 3 months, if you want, you can, in October, we're going to have Mike Kanakos. He's going to talk about PowerShell secrets and the PowerShell secret module. He's also the host and organizer of the Raleigh PowerShell meetup group. In November, we're going to have Friedrich Wyman. I don't know if you've seen his tools. They're a really interesting set of tools he's written for PowerShell over the years. And he's going to cover pipelines in a nutshell. Should be a fun topic as well. And we're going to have the other, in December, we're going to have the other co-host, co-organizer of the Raleigh group, Phil Bossman. He's going to talk about core concepts, making sense of functions, how to write your first function, how to get into advanced functions. Should be another interesting topic. So tonight, really excited that Matthew Dowst is joining us and put the time in to put this presentation together. And tonight, Matthew's going to show us tips and tricks on how you can use PowerShell to free yourself from tedious administrative tasks, something that PowerShell is really great at. Matthew's an automation consultant, 15 years experience. He's really involved with the PowerShell community. He writes blogs. He publishes the PowerShell weekly newsletter. If you're on Twitter, you can see when he publishes that. And he's author of Practical Automation with PowerShell. And on that note, at the end of his presentation tonight, we'll be asking you to drop your email into the chat, and then we'll pick some lucky winner to win a free copy of his new book. So without further ado, Matthew, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it. Great info, and it's like you guys have a bunch of really good stuff coming up. So hopefully I can hold a candle too. But
I'm sure you will.
Basically, so tonight, I'd kind of like to go through, as Doug said, kind of automate the admin, right? There's that famous adage, it says, always choose a.
I'm sorry, Matthew. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yep, that would help if I did that.
Yep, cool. There we go. All right, I see your screen. Great.
So yeah, as I was saying, there's the age-old adage of always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because they'll find an easy way to do it, right? So I am often that lazy person, or the person who just hates doing repetitive tasks. I've also found PowerShell to help me out with things that I just know I'm not very good at, like organizing my inbox, right? So let's kind of go through some different things that I've done throughout the years. I've put together, this is all open environment, no click-throughs or anything like that. So feel free to ask questions or anything along the lines. But with that, go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, we've all had the issue where you wake up in the morning and your inbox looks like this. You just had something flicking on and off all night long, right? And you also kind of run into the problem of, I don't want to create a rule, right? Because I want this, I want these alerts to actually show up in, on my phone and things, when I'm not sitting here, looking at my Outlook. But at the same time, my inbox ends up looking like this, and I can't really find, what needs to go through there. So what I did is I used PowerShell to help me solve this problem, and walk through some of the ways that you can do that. And so the way that we're going to do it is actually through the Outlook COM objects. So what this allows you to do is actually use the APIs in the back end in Outlook to be able to perform something. So you don't have to be an Exchange administrator, an Office 365 administrator, connecting out to the cloud or to your servers or anything. This is just going to do everything right here, through your local Outlook client. So to get started, and we'll see here, this you get the fun little assembly path to add in and then declaring the Outlook application and setting the namespace, right? Those pretty much just standard, telling PowerShell, I'm using Outlook. Here's the thing that you need. And this assembly here, it's not required, but it will help you out tremendously, right? Because you have these different enumeration lists here, right? So, Outlook folder inbox, that maps back to some number. I think it's 1 or 0, it could be 14. I can't remember all of those off the top of my head, right? So I'll just load that assembly in there, and then I'll let PowerShell help me do the rest, right? So I just know that I need to get a folder. There's all my different folders. My inbox, my contacts, my calendars, journal, whatever folder I want to get, it helps me out. So don't be, scared by that command. It's not that bad. You just kind of remember where it is and rerun it. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and grab my inbox, and then I'm going to create a list here of all my inbox items. So there's this, when you generate this inbox, or really when you do this on any Outlook folder, you'll have this property called items. This items property does not populate by default when you do it. It doesn't populate until you specifically call it. Depending on the size of your inbox, that could take some time, it's 10, 15, 20 seconds sometimes to populate that. So I just use a quick for each to put that all into a list. And then I can go down and I can use this list over and over again, right? This is everything that's in my inbox. So then, in true PowerShell fashion, you have all of your items, right? So you can do your get member, and you can see, where I have my you have your subjects, sender name, sender address, right? So you can essentially, just using a where object, create a filter on anything you would like. So I can take a look here. I have a bunch of emails that I saw here coming from Azure. I run that, and I could see, got back the subject line of all of those. Now in this situation, I was good when I created the alert in Azure, and put a name in there. All right, so I can actually use a little bit of regex. So this is just telling it to get everything that's in between square brackets, right? So you have your forward lookup, basically everything in between, and then ending here. So if I actually run this again, see, it extracts out that value in all of those. I've done similar ones as well, to where it gets the name, right? And this is basically what I'm doing here is I'm telling it where I want this file to, or where I want this email to go, right? So if we look at my Outlook here, I have Katoso folder and Northwinds folder, right? So let's just go ahead and get these filed away, and then I can go through and deal with them, right? So in order to do that, I need to be able to have the folders that exist in there, right? So if I pull up my inbox folder, and I look at my folders, right? So it's only going to give me the top level, right? So I just create a simple function here that basically, for each folder, return the folder. If that folder has folders, it's just going to recurse, and I'll get all of my folders here, and then I can just match on names. It makes it much easier on myself. It does take a little bit to set up on here, but then again, we're going to say get our ones with this email address. Go ahead and extract that name out again, just like we did right here. But this one, we're going to check and see if there's a folder that matches that extracted name. All right. If there is, then we can just simply call a move on that object and have it. Actually, clear out my inbox for me. So all of those got filed away into, appropriate folders.
Nice. And so basically in the first few minutes of your demo, you're showing regexes and recursive functions. I like it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Was fun. So then again, so we can take this even further, right? Let's go ahead and re-grab the inbox and then put this into a function as well, right? So again, just the mail item, right? The folder that we want it to go to. And I had an extra one in here for mark as read, right? Because I'm not going to go through and read all these. I know there was a there was some alert that was flipping on and off all night. I don't need to do that, right? And then maybe even add a test parameter in here so that I can, see what it's going to do before I do it, right? So when I'm using this on my actual work email, I'm not accidentally overriding something. So, simply coming down in here, and we get the object unread, set it to false, save it, and then again, that same method, that move method. All right, so just to kind of show how, figured all this out is, you can go out of my way now so I can go full screen. There we go. Okay. So, the infamous get member pipe, this shows you all the properties and all the methods that exist inside of the object that you're looking at. All right, so mark as task, move, reply. You can reply through all these, save, send. There's all sorts of different properties that you can update and different methods that you can call. So really, there was not much. Once I was able to figure out how to get the stuff from within inside my inbox, then it just kind of becomes, clicking through here and, seeing, okay, I can filter on sender address. I can, filter on these different items, right? And I can even go in here and do a group object on sender email address and help me get some statistics. Like, okay, I got 23 that are coming from this email address. Maybe I need to, figure out some sort of way to clean these up, right? And just kind of a good way to help determine where things should go. And then again, so we can call our function. And then this time when it runs, it should, so I have mark read set to true. So now if I go into my Northwinds folder, oh, sorry, I put them in the Azure folder. So now I go to my Azure folder, there they are, and they've all been marked red. All right, so this is just a quick little script I put together. I have another one actually that you can build in some custom JSON and pass it to it, and it will handle a lot of that things for you. So I created some kind of filters and things like that, and that'll be up on the GitHub at the end of this call. So
cool. So all the stuff from what we're seeing now will be up on GitHub, and I'll get that link from you later.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all there. Okay. So the next one we'll take a look at, again, using Outlook, right? So the same functions I have here again. This time, I always get that email. It's like, oh, let me know what times you're free today or tomorrow or what have you, right? And then I go and I look at my calendar and it looks like this. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, okay, this is a 15-minute meeting. This is it's just a pain, right? So I have this PowerShell script that just literally just sits open on my computer pretty much most of the day to be able to get that data, right? So again, look, very similar to what we did up here where we got the inbox. This time I'm just going to get the folder. So I get my calendar. Now, where this gets a little trickier is I could do calendar folder.item, and it would return back every calendar item that I have. But if anyone who's been in a job for a while, you probably have quite a few items in your inbox. And on top of that, it gets really hairy when you start looking at recurring appointments, because on the back end here, a recurring appointment doesn't actually show on the date of recurrence. You only see the first one, and then it calculates up all the different ones. So it's really difficult to find out what you have going on that day, right? But there is a nifty little method in there called get calendar exporter, right? So you can get this calendar exporter here. I load this into an object, and I can see, I can set a start date and end date, and tell it, use this method here. I want to see my free busy again. This is those fun little lists that we don't have to memorize, but sometimes we do. But then becomes then we want to, now that data has actually been loaded into here, into this calendar share. The problem is it's hard to view. So if you look at the methods that it has forward as an iCal and then save as an iCal. Neither one of those are really going to do me any good in PowerShell. I want a PowerShell object that I can see. I don't want to send an email to somebody or get that back. But what I can do is actually, when I do the forward as an iCal, right, this actually formats it. This creates the email, but doesn't actually send it. So it creates an email object in here. And then again, it produces the body. And this is what the email would look like if you were to send it, right? It's going to say, here's, your free times, what all your different appointments are and everything listed in there. People don't need to know all of my other appointments, right? They just want to know when I'm free. All right, so we can do a little more regex in here, right? So we'll go ahead and we'll split the body on line breaks, right? So every time there's a line break in here, we'll split. And then when there's a tab, the word free, and free being the end of the sentence. So, that way you're ensuring that you're only getting ones that say free, right? If I didn't have this tab here in the front and something had free at the end, like here, run this here. So we see this backlog view free came up, right? So then I just want to tell it, go ahead and be my tab, because I know that's a tab character in there. Right? Or you could do a space. Probably would do the same thing. No, space doesn't work. Do the tab. Yep, tab. So now I have just my free times. And again, we can then take that a step deeper, right? So each one of these lines, I only need to get this first half, right? I don't, again, this is a bunch of junk blank white space that we don't need. So again, we'll do a split on the tab, tell it to give me the first one, and we'll just, just to be safe, go ahead and throw a trim there on the end. And there we go. That's, now I can copy and paste this. Probably not going to tell them I'm free before 8 a.m., but I copy and paste this into an email and shoot that over to them, and they can, then decide what it is. And you can set up any date time ranges that you want, in here, and have it generate that data. So just, taking the body, extracting out the data that you want, and then cleaning it up a little bit with just a, couple little splits and some matching, and you're good to go.
Good stuff. I don't think I've ever used the object model that way against Outlook. That's cool.
All right. Do we have any questions or anything before we go on? Or
No questions yet.
Cool.
People think it's pretty slick.
All right, cool. Good deal. Good deal. All right. So the next
So
one.
maybe I do have one question. So
Okay.
you're doing a write host. I guess it would have been cool to put it in an object so you could do it to other things, but that's just another step you can take rather than just doing a write host. You can capture that and put it in a PS object or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I actually have another one that I use when I have to fill out my time card. It splits these out and then calculates the time between them.
Oh, very good. Okay. So yep, a lot of things you can do with this. Very nice. Okay.
All right. So the next one, it's similar, but we're actually going to be using Word to help me in PowerShell. So I am a notoriously bad speller. I just am. I always have been. I've learned to live with it in my life, and I've learned to adapt to it in my life. And thank goodness that spell checker has gotten so good. I don't quite run into the it doesn't know what I'm trying to spell anymore type of things. But you can actually load that dictionary into PowerShell and then use that for other things. Right? I initially wrote this functionality for System Center Service Manager when I was working in that environment a lot to check my lists that you create, your drop downs and things, because there's no way to check your XML as you're typing it, right? So this is actually export out, and they would export out the management packs and then check the values inside of there just to make sure I didn't have any typos or anything that was looking horrible to the end users. So again, we're going to go ahead and just create a dictionary object. Again, just like with Outlook, we're loading the Word application. And then to actually use the spell checker, you don't need to have a document open, but in order to get to the suggestions, you do. But if we just open a document to void, it's not even going to open Word. It just essentially loads a Word document into the background that my session can then use, right? The trick now becomes picking your language, right? So if you look at the available languages in Word, there's quite a bit, and trying to figure out which one is which and what to select. The get culture commandlet, which is native in PowerShell, lets you know what your local ID is, right? So I can say get my local ID, 1033, which is US English, which will allow me to select just that language, and then load the active spelling dictionary into this dictionary object. All right, now I have this dictionary object loaded here that I can start using to actually spell check my words, right? So one that I notoriously misspell, and to this day, I don't know which one's E's or I's or anything in here. The word definitely. I don't know. One of these days I'll figure it out. All right. So then I'm doing here is using the word application. Text is just this is the word that I want to spell check. If you have a custom dictionary, so you've added custom things in there, things like that, you can load that in at the same time, or you can just set it to null. You can tell it whether or not you want to ignore uppercase and then give it the dictionary that you want to check against. And it came back and told me that it was false. That tells me that the word is misspelled. All right, but that false doesn't really do me any good. I could sit here and try to figure out how to respell it. Oh, still wrong. Right, so the next step is to get spelling suggestions. Right, so again, I have my Word app, get my spelling suggestions off of this word. Here it comes back. Here's probably how I should spell it. Load that back into here. Comes back true. Tells me that my word is spelled correctly. So how can I use this to help me, with my PowerShell, right? So comments, right? I'm, misspellings and comments are pretty common. I also use something similar for when I'm checking Markdown, right? The Markdown, you can't really write that in Word. You're not going to get spelling checks and things like that when you're writing a README. And you can copy and back and forth. It just kind of becomes a pain, right? So you can use similar tactics on other things, but all I'm going to do right now is get this next script that we're going to go through, and I'm going to load that into PowerShell just as get content, which just makes it a string object. Now, if you're not familiar with this, PowerShell has its own parser, right? So you ever wonder how ISE or VS Code knows what you're typing is a commandlet and what's a string, and all of that is this PS parser in here. So you can actually take this and tokenize your script. So if I run it on just everything, you can come back and you can see, right, command, new line, group end, string, variable, operator. It's pretty cool. It's a really good way to check your scripts, to be able to get data out of them. I've used it to go through and read my scripts to ensure that I have all the right function or all the right modules declared in it and things like that. All right, but what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and get my comments. All right, so if I look through here, now it should just be what all my different comments are. And it knows single line comments and multi-line comments and everything. It's pretty good. So essentially what I'll do now is just say, hey, every comment, go ahead and run through the dictionary. So the comment content. All right, I know for a fact I have a misspelling in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and break on it. All right, so here we go. I had a comment that I have a misspelling in. But the issue here, so if I try to get the spelling suggestions on this, so if I look at the content here, right, it's the whole line that it's given. It knows it's when this check spelling runs, it knows that something in that line is misspelled. The get spelling suggestions can't figure that out. It doesn't know which word I'm talking, because you notice it's not loading a dictionary or anything else into there. So to get around that, we can again create a function where what we'll do is we'll get that comma, the comment content. Let's say that 3 times fast, and split it, right? So just a regular split with nothing in the middle is going to cause it to split on spaces, line breaks, tabs, anything along those lines. All right, so then I can individually check each word inside of there, right? And then even better thing about this comment content is it tells me what line it's on. So I can come in here. I now know this is on line 24, right? Now I'm going to get my spelling suggestions on that particular word. I'm going to go ahead and just throw them all into a PS object and let it run. So if I come in here, spell check my comments, and then I run through each comment, it's going to come back, hey, line 24, this word is misspelled. Here's some suggested, replacements for it. So I can go in over here and fix my word. And then if I run it again, load it again. Everything comes back clear and good. So using the dictionary in there to be able to, spell check something that's not necessarily in Word. It works pretty well. Just remember, and if you want to use the spelling suggestions, it goes on a per word basis, right? So just depending on the logic that you want to do, you could have it code check the line, and then if it comes back as false, then break it up into the individual words and have it go through there. It's, again, kind of possibilities are endless on that.
That's really slick. So you and I share the same problem. I can't spell either. And I tell people I can either do PowerShell coding for you, or I can spell in my documents. Which one do you want me to do? So cool. This is a good way to automate that process. I like it.
So on time. Okay.
No questions. No questions yet in the chat. So let's keep going.
Cool. So this next one, so the PS Notes, it's a module that I wrote. It's out there on the PowerShell gallery and GitHub. And what this is those commandlets that you just hate typing all the time, right? Like arrays, I hate typing that. The only reason that got in there so fast is because I have a mechanical keyboard. I have a gaming keyboard that I use to program macros to type my PowerShell for me. All right, but I don't always have this particular keyboard with me in things, right? So I created this PS Notes module, which will allow you to define different snippets and then just call them with a simple alias here. So stopwatch. All right, so I got my start a new stopwatch, stop it, kind of get the elapsed seconds. Just kind of a quick and easy way to keep track of those things, right? So it has some built-in search functionality in it. So I can say any that have been tagged as file, right? We'll return those to me. So I can see here, okay, here's my one for removing a file. Here's my one for getting a file name without the extension in it. Here's the one for creating a new folder. Just those. It kind of came about because I had a OneNote that was just full of different little snippets that I always copied back and forth all the time, right? And then it even has an out grid view if you want to grab that. So it imports that in. You can use that, and we'll kind of see here. You can create your own custom notes, right? So again, got to get a remote registry key. And it's something I have to do quite often. I really don't feel like remembering typing this out all the time. So again, I can create a note for it, right? So I just give it a name, alias, details. You can tags. So the tags is an array, so you can assign multiple tags to it. And then this is functionality so if anybody's already familiar with this and has used it, this action that I just added this functionality in. This is the default action that it's going to take. So you can have it display, you can have it copy to your clipboard, or you can have it run it, which kind of comes in handy, right? So again, we can look at the one that we just created. There it is. I can copy and paste that, put it into the script that I'm writing. It works. It's not something that I would put in, like I'm not going to put this reg here into my script, right? It's going to be something that I go here and I'm going to copy out and put in there. But at the same time, I can use it to save myself some time, right? So I created this one, AZCon. There's about 5 or 6 different Azure subscriptions that I need to connect to on a daily basis. All right, some are in the same tenant, some are in different tenants, things like that. I created this one here, just as a simple, read host. It says which subscription do you want to connect to? I just want to connect to this one. So that one's set to where it runs by default, right? So if I show you what this one actually looks like. All right, so I just created an array here of all the different subscription IDs that I would need. All right, obviously I have it blanked out because we're on a recording. And then it's just list those out for me. That's what you saw right there with the 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and then a read host. And that read host is going to take that thing. It's going to check and see if I'm already connected to that subscription. If not, it's going to try to switch me to it. If that fails, then it's going to clear the context and then ask me to sign in again. All right, just a kind of quick, easy way when I'm working, I'm switching back and forth between environments. I want to, be able to just connect to these different ones. I could just type in AZCon and I'm good to go.
Cool. So a couple of questions. I think for me, you answered one of them, but somebody's asking about the pros and cons of this versus using the Visual Studio Code snippets natively.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the nice thing about this is it saves it as a JSON file, and this just gets written into the app data. But you can create multiples of these and actually import them in, right? So you can share them amongst your team. You can transfer them to different devices, a lot simpler. Plus, this works in PowerShell 7 and 5.1, right? So, there are some things we, still have to hit 5.1 on, and so you can so there's a functionality to export these out. It'll export in a nice transportable JSON that you can then share with your team, put it on a network share, let everybody get access to it.
Cool.
It seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, so it works across a whole bunch of different feature things, not just limited or just constrained into the Visual Studio Code session.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. So I got another question. How about adding words to the dictionary or excluding words that are detected as misspelled? So I guess going back to the word, the spelling that you were doing.
Yeah. So you, as I mentioned, you can create a custom dictionary object, and then you would load that in. I don't have a custom dictionary on this computer. I just rebuilt my my home machine, but essentially the same way that I grab the dictionary here, you can grab your custom dictionary and import that in here where I just had null.
Sounds good. And of course, people want to know, they like your font and color scheme theme. What are they? What's your color scheme that you're using in the fonts?
It's just the Visual Studio dark default.
Cool. So the standard dark theme, and you're good to go. Awesome. All right. No more questions yet, so let's keep going.
All right. So this next one, Selenium. For those that that aren't familiar with Selenium, it's a web application testing tool, right? It's used by a lot of developers that create web apps to do click-throughs and things like that once they make changes to confirm that things are working. Well, my company has notoriously bad forms to fill out. Nothing against my company at all, but and I'm sure everybody's company has that SharePoint form that's just been used forever. Every time I need to make a travel request, I got to retype in my driver's license and all the other, my frequent flyer codes and everything like that. So you can use Selenium to actually perform actions inside of a web browser for you. Right. So this Selenium model, it's made by Adam Driscoll. He does a great job of keeping it up to date and getting the latest drivers into it and things. I've just personally found that it just works better with Firefox. Edge and Chrome change their drivers so often, it can get kind of buggy. And like I said, Adam does a great job of keeping it up to date, but I mean, Chrome can update in the middle of the day sometimes. So if it's not the exact right version, it gets finicky, right? So Chrome and Edge, they work, but I found for these purposes that that Firefox works pretty well. So if I just run this start SE Firefox, it just pops open a Firefox window for me. All right, and then I tell it to enter this URL. Actually, hit me for this, but I'm sorry, this one works better in 5.1. it's faster in 5.1. It works in 7. I don't know what it is. I haven't bugged Adam to ask him why, but it's a lot faster at 5.1. So for demo purposes, we'll use 5.1. All right, so now I have my form loaded, right? If you notice here, this driver, right, this is what's telling it, this Firefox session that I have going on here. And then you have this get SE element. It's a Selenium element. So that's an element that is inside of this form. Right? Depending on how the form is created, some of them are great and they have an ID or a name or something like that. But in this example, I'm using a Google form, which doesn't. So if I come in here and I do an inspect on this, on this box here, I see that it has a class, it has a object, it has a type. There's no ID to it, right? It makes it kind of difficult for me to say, get SE element by ID and give it an ID. Forms like that, this works great on. Forms that don't, you can still work through it by using the console debugger here. I'm just going to right click, copy my X path, which I already have pasted in here, but to show you that is a ridiculous path that you're never going to remember. Or, you don't have to sit here and go div and figure it out. It does it for you. All right, so then I can come in here and say get this element, this text box. So I can come in here and I could see that it's grabbed it, and then this SE send keys. There it goes. It sent those keys into that box. So it actually uses a send key and not programmatically doing it. So because you can use like a web request to fill in forms and things like that. This is actually how how somebody would sit here and go through it. So you're not limited by the back end of the form, right? You can essentially get it any way you want. Right. So if I go through and I click on my 3 text boxes in here, right, I can then copy the X path on each of them, make a quick little function. So just get my text box, throw my keys in there. All right, so run this. All right. So filled in all the fields that I wanted. And I'm not a nihilist. For those who don't know, Arthur Dent is from Hitchhiker's Guide, and the world was ending when he left. So the next part then becomes these radio buttons, right? So I could do the same thing here on these radio buttons, inspect it, get the X path to it. But that gets kind of tricky, right? Those can change, if they added a new selection in there, things like that. It's kind of hard to be able to do that. But if I look at the class that they belong to, right? It's this radio group container, right? So this export outer circle. You get to the right. A lot of times this takes a little bit of finagling, make sure you get the right one. You can just kind of test the different ones. But again, I can go ahead and say, okay, anything with the class of export outer circle. Right, and then if I return that, I got back quite a few, and they look like they're about the same as on here. But unfortunately, I don't have any text to go with them. Right, I got these locations. Try to bring that, but let me just go ahead and test it out. Yeah, 0 is the first one. 1 is the second. 2 is the third. So it's pretty safe bet. And if I look at the location on them, I can see that they all go down in a row. All right, so let's take it up a level. All right, so let's go ahead and find where these are. And if I come back up into here, there should be a container that contains both of them. So my doc shared Wiz toggle label container. Run that. Hey, look at that. There's my text. Okay, so so that's my selectors. I got 12 of those. Radio buttons, I got 12 of those. It's pretty safe bet that they coincide with each other. even though if you'll notice, you can't always go based on the location because it won't always be exactly the same. You see, these are about 2 off from each other, and they don't even line up perfectly, right? So, but if I just go ahead and take a look here, label, right? So this selector is, I have, all my text fields, and this is an array, so I can use index of. So index of full day is number 2. Okay, if I run that in here, just up here so you can see it. Not too bad. All right, so I've pretty much been able to kind of determine, yeah, those coincide with each other. All right, so again, I can create a function, get my selectors, find the index of my label, use that label to push that button. All right, so if I then come in here, run this, I've just selected all my buttons. All right, and then one last final step in here is, again, you can just come in here, inspect, find out what the class is, what the label is, what the, you can go based up, you can do the CSS, you can do the class, you can do XPath, there's IDs, names, it just depends on how the page is formed to get that data in there. So I can go ahead and get my submit button, sure that I got it, and then there's a send click. Request has been submitted. All right, so I can fill out these forms. I can get all that data that I got to put in there over and over and over again. All right, another great use case for this is the Microsoft catalog, the updates catalog, which has a horrible backend, and there's no way to be able to get the data off of that. Right, you can have it go out, search the catalog, come back, get all the results for you, and then you can then load that data and audit it against whatever you need to do, and then of course always just ending your session to clear it out and close it. There are other tools out there as well that you can use with it. There's this Selenium Ide here, all right, that'll allow you to put in a URL. And it'll start recording it, and you can do all of your click-throughs. And it's recording this as I do this. And then I can come in here and I can see, okay, I opened it up. I did this, I clicked here on this CSS target, right? So I can copy that, and I clicked here on this CSS. So you can see, how you can translate this directly over into these commands here. All right, it just depends on how you want to go about doing it. This works really great, if you have a page that changes a lot, because, and this is not something that I would use to replace like a robotic process automation. This is something that I kind of use on my own, right? It's a test environment. It's not really a robotic test. It's not really a robotic process automation.
That's pretty cool. So CSS, HTML, web pages all glued together with PowerShell. Nice.
Yep. I see the question in there about SSO auto login. So yeah, you can have it fill out logins for you. You can define profiles. So you just point it to, a lot of times what I just do is I'll go in, log in, say, remember me, and then close it and let it open it up and do its thing. Or you can have it actually fill out the forms for you. I have one that does some Twitter scraping for me because Twitter has not exposed bookmarks to the API. So it just opens up Twitter, puts in my username and password, sends my phone a MFA request, I approve it, and then it goes through and does its thing to pull the information for me. So you can You can either pre-stage it or have it do it. Obviously, it's a lot more secure to pre-stage it, unless you attend the next meeting and learn how to use the secret management module and have it pull your credentials from there. All right, so one last final one wanted to show through and talk to you guys on is this server setup script here I have here. Right, so this is one that I use because I'm always creating new VMs and blowing them up, and I want to be able to test things in certain conditions and all those other things. So create this script, and for some versions of it I have can get pretty long. This is 143, so it's not too bad. There's some that I have that are a couple hundred that will actually go through and create SQL databases and upload data for me and things like that. Really cool thing about these and the way that you can do it is through GitHub Gists. If you're not familiar with these are so it's not a full-fledged project. It is just a single script that you can upload to your Gist, and you can make them private or public. So this one I have here is marked as secret. So it's, if you go and look at my profile not logged in as me, you won't be able to see this, but anybody can access it via the URL, right? So I can get this URL to this script here, and then I can go on to my brand new server that just has a couple things installed on there. Open up PowerShell 5.1. Use the invoke REST method. So basically, an invoke REST method is just going to grab the raw text that is here on this screen, and then invoke expression is just going to execute it, just like if I had copied and pasted that entire PowerShell script onto this machine. You can even use a shortened URL on here if you want, because a lot of times it's easier to copy a single command like this than it is to copy an entire thing, right? So it's going to go through, it's going to install PowerShell 7. It's going to install Chocolatey. Then, that's going to go through and it's going to install VS Code. I have it. So it goes VS Code. It installs the extensions that I like it to install, that I always want to have on there. You can even download your workspace file to have all your settings and everything automatically moved over. And then it starts goes through and starts installing some PowerShell modules. Right. So essentially, using Chocolatey is really kind of the best way to get that, right? But just to start with, installing PowerShell 7. Again, just to look familiar. This is pretty much exactly what we just used to kick it off on that server there. Except for this is an official link from Microsoft that installs the latest version of PowerShell 7 for you. All right, so you see here, we're doing our import Excel module. I believe
Thank you.
Yes. Trust me, that one gets installed everywhere I go. That's not pandering.
Cool.
But it also will check and see, okay, are you already running PowerShell 7? Because if so, I'm done. I don't need to do anything, right? If it's if it's not running PowerShell 7, it's going to go through. It's all it's going to do is just check, come up in here, and see if it's installed. So just checking the uninstall, in the local machine and the current user, see if the URL for PowerShell is put in there. Actually, what? Take that back. That's for Chocolatey. CIM instance will tell you if PowerShell 7 is installed or not. Chocolatey, we can go through and check the install here. So goes through, test runs this version here. Right, if it doesn't exist, it errors out. I know I don't have anything and just returns blank. Right, so then I can know I'll just go ahead and install that. They, again, pretty common one throughout the community now. You see that it just kind of starts running through, checks again, reloads the environmental variables, checks again, make sure that's installed. If it is, then it continues on. Then I get the one where I check the URL. All right, so checking for Git. Is Git installed? Go ahead and install it. All right. Is VS Code installed? If not, install it. All right, and then getting the code extensions, invoke expression code. This just is a listing of the ones that I always use. And then here is where it gets a little, trickier, for lack of better, because if you noticed here, I'm running in 5.1, right? But I want these PowerShell modules to be installed in 7. So actually, what this is doing here is creating a string. Right, so if I here, and this is just a simple get module list available. Sees if it's there. If it's not, go ahead and set the PS gallery to trusted, install the module. Otherwise, confirm that it's already been installed and move on to the next one, right? So then what I could do here is I can bundle this all into a single command. All right, so I have my string here. And you notice these curly bracket zeros. Those get replaced by anything after the format. So now my command has my module name imported into it over and over again, right? And then again, I'm just going to create a argument of command, run this command, and then I'm just going to call pwsh, which is your PowerShell 7. So it's actually going to launch a second window to go through. And actually, if I rerun this, it'll go through quicker because it actually it checks every time, right, to see if everything's on there. So you see it's popping open a separate PowerShell 7 window to install those modules for me so that they are in the, installed in the version that I want them to be installed in. And if you see here, I now have Git and VS Code, PowerShell 7 and everything just got installed for me. So these are pretty nifty. One word of warning on them: if you edit them, it changes the URL. So anytime you make a change to it, you need to make sure if you have that URL saved off somewhere to be able to call a script like this. Just make sure that you update that big old long alphanumeric. It's not even a GUID. I don't know. It's just a big ugly string. So
That's definitely one thing I wish they had did not do, or make it so that you say every time I edit it, don't change it.
Yeah.
So there's another question, I think, in the chat.
Yeah. So there's no reason you couldn't install them straight in PowerShell. The reason behind I wrote that on in there like that was when I was testing different version modules between different instances of PowerShell and trying to keep them separated. But if you let it auto discover in both paths, then you can certainly just install them in the one and let them go. And you can update that to include version numbers or anything that you want in there. However you build that command out in here, right, would be how it installs.
Nice. Hey, I don't mean to call you out, but I am. I think did you miss an L in your test install from URL? So if I might be wrong. So if you scroll back up, There we go.
Oh yeah, yep. See, I told you I'm a
Awesome.
bad speller.
That's the theme of the night.
So my next blog post will be on how to use the spell checker to check the spelling of your function names.
Hey, that's I do it all the time. And then
Yep.
it's like by the time I'm halfway through building things and making tons of dependencies, it's like, I don't know if I go back and renaming everything. So forget it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a few of those that haunt me. So all of these are available out on my GitHub. So I'll paste that into the chat window.
Great. And I'll put that up on the link later as well. Thank you.
So so the downside to detecting chocolatey via the environmental variables, the reason that I had it run that way is because after chocolate installs, you actually have to close and relaunch in order for it to get the environmental variables. So this kind of prevents you not having the environmental variable in there, right? So if it ran and got like halfway through or something like that, you'd be able to kind of restart without having to close and reopen your session.
Nice. Makes sense. All of your examples have been great and timely in the chat. Awesome. Any so is that the wrapping up your
That's
demos?
it. That's what I
was
have.
great. That was perfect. So any questions in the chat? Because what I want to do, this has been great. Yes, it has been great. Thank you, Matthew. It's been awesome.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the recording and then we'll do a little bit more business. So everybody want to please stay on and I'm going to just stop the recording. Okay.
Yeah, and so in the spell check, I did not have the office path